Welcome back to my channel. We are here to discuss The Gilded Age, episode 7. I can't believe we are this far. We only have 2 more episodes after this, so I'm already going through withdrawal, and I'm sure that you guys are also having the shakes right now because we love this show, and there's just so much more, and I'm pretty sure it'll be signed on for seasons 2 and 3 and furthermore, but as it stands now, we're coming to an end. So let's talk a little bit about this. Episode 7, it was titled Irresistible Change. Again, a lot happened. As we see week to week, we're starting to dive into the story and the character development and the plot lines of all of the characters. So there's a lot to discuss, and I'm going to jump right in talking about my girl Agnes. So we saw last week that Agnes's maid told her that she saw Oscar with Miss Turner, who is Bertha's maid from across the street. So obviously, Agnes does not like this. She had a conversation with Oscar. We did not see the conversation, but he left in a huff, and the aftermath showed that it did not end well. Yes, she confronted him, told him what she knew. I don't know if he denied it or whatever, but it did not pan out well. And so she's later now telling the story to Ada and Marian and saying, well, I guess Ada was there when she had the conversation. So now she's telling the story to Marian and saying that, she heard that he was fooling around with a servant. And I'm pretty sure it seems like it's the fact that it's a servant alone is enough for her, and I'm pretty sure it stings even more that it's Miss Russell's servant. So she's beside herself over this. And I have to say, this is the first time that I've seen Agnes frazzled. She's usually last week too, she was frazzled when she went over to confront the Mrs. Russell for poaching Bannister. But this time she's kind of pacing back and forth, and she seems very uncomfortable and frazzled. Anywho, she goes on and says she wants Miss Turner sacked.
I want her sacked. I want her out on her ear by tomorrow night.
That's her solution to this problem. She wants the woman fired. And obviously she doesn't talk to Bertha, right? So now they're like, well, how are you planning to do this? And so she tells Marian, you're going to do it. Since you want to be all friendly with her, you want to go to her house and have luncheons and whatnot, then you can take this news over to her and you can ask her or tell her or however you're going to do it. This is going to be on you. Of course, Marian pushes back because she's like, how am I going to go to another woman and tell her that she needs to get rid of her maid? Agnes don't care how, why, where, when, but you're going to go do it. And she lays a heavy hand on her, tells her, I don't normally tell people what to do, so to speak, but this time I'm telling you this is what you need to do and this is how you need to do it. So Marian has gotten a message, and now she has to go and talk to Miss Russell, which she does. Bertha is, she receives her. They have a pleasant conversation until Marian tells her, my aunt wants you to get rid of Miss Turner, and it's been said, or she's heard that Miss Turner has been involved, has had an inappropriate relationship with some man of means, but she won't say who. And so of course Bertha's response is, how do you expect me to fire somebody who's done nothing wrong or who's been serving me well because of some rumor about a man, and you won't even tell me who the man is? Of course, Marian can't say any more than that and just leaves it at that. And I think Bertha says that she'll think about it or whatever, but she pretty much dismisses her. She doesn't promise her anything. While we're talking about Miss Turner, we see a scene in which she is down in the kitchen with the rest of the staff at the Russell house, just being a bitch. She's needling at church because of what happened last week, and how he got usurped by Bannister. Just being messy. Church does not like her. He's made that clear before. He doesn't like all of her little digs and her comments, and he just doesn't like her energy. So we know that Marian had come to Bertha and asked that she fire Miss Turner. And at first, Bertha didn't really see a need for it. Later on, we see this.
I don't believe I will take any lessons from Mr. Church, thank you.
I should teach him a lesson if I were you. A sharp one.
And this was enough for Bertha to change her mind and decide that she was going to let Miss Turner go. She had suspected that the man that Marian was referring to was Oscar Van Ryn. I don't know how she drew that conclusion, but when she sees Miss Turner talking to Larry, and she sees that it seems like they're kind of whispering and talking, even though they're really not talking about anything important or anything inappropriate, but she sees that Miss Turner rubs her hand over Larry's arm before she walks away, which is the same thing that Marian had made reference to when she was first talking to Bertha. And I suppose that was enough for Bertha to say, all right, there's something here. She definitely doesn't want Miss Turner coming on to her son or, having too much conversation with him. But it was enough for her to change her mind. And she goes ahead and she actually does decide to get rid of her.
Tell you what I've been thinking, and I wonder if it isn't time for us to take a rest from each other. What? We don't get on as we used to. Like all employers, you set the tone. See what I mean?
But letting her go unceremoniously for no reason is going to come back to haunt her, because Miss Turner is going to seek revenge. I mean, we saw already she was plotting with Oscar to sabotage the Russells because Mr. Russell had turned down her advances. I didn't know if she had an issue with Bertha personally, but obviously she's coming on to the woman's husband, so she's clearly not her friend. But now Miss Turner really feels validated in taking them down or seeking revenge, whatever that's going to look like. But we know that that's just, if she was such a wench when they were treating her well, you can only imagine how she's going to behave now. And we see one of the first things she's done since she left is sent a letter to Bannister letting him know who was the person who wrote that note and told Agnes. We don't know who that person is. Bannister sees the note. He doesn't seem surprised. It seems like he looks at it like, this kind of makes sense. And he says, he tells one of the other butlers or staff members there that revenge is a dish best served cold. So clearly he also has his eyes on revenge as well. And we don't know who it is. Disclaimer, last week I did say that it was Agnes's maid. I thought I heard her say that. I thought at the end of the evening after Agnes came back after, making a spectacle herself at the Russells, when she was talking to her maid and saying, that she felt really bad and she had lost control, and they were talking. I thought it was Armstrong was the person who wrote the note. I was wrong. She did tell her about Oscar and Miss Turner, but I thought I heard that at some point. So disclaimer, I was wrong about that. It's still a mystery who wrote the note, but Bannister does know now, and so that will come out later in hopefully this season. We'll see. So after Miss Turner got sacked, before she left that evening, she goes into George's room again, and he tells her, "What are you doing here? Get out." It's again, his reaction is not strong enough for me. I think he says the right things. What are you doing in here? Get out. And it's the tone of voice, almost so that if anybody is listening, they will hear that, and they can always say that they heard him turn her down. But it doesn't seem like enough. Like if somebody comes into my room who I don't want to be there, I think my reaction would be to get up and tell this person to leave, open the door and direct them out. Maybe because he's a man and she's a woman and he doesn't feel unsafe. But I feel like his reaction does not fit the situation, and this kind of lends to, are they sleeping together? Does he like it? Is there something else going on? Yet again, when Bertha came to him and said, that Agnes wanted her to fire Miss Turner, he didn't put up a fight. He seemed to say, well, all right, and he did tell his wife to go ahead and give her a good reference. Now that could be his way of solving his problem without really having to get his hands dirty. So it just seems like a convenient way to let her go. But I just feel like there's something still there that we don't know. And I don't believe that he's on the up and up. As a matter of fact, after they had, at the very beginning, when he was giving his presentation and they were showing the lighting in the new station that he's having built, he puts his wife and his daughter in the carriage and he tells them that he's going to be staying late to talk to one of his colleagues. And I think he did stay late to talk to somebody. I think they show scenes later, even though I'm not sure what time that was. But when he said that, I got the impression that he was lying and that he was going to meet somebody else or do something he had no business doing or do something he didn't want his wife to know. I don't know. I could be making that up. Just could be my spidey sense, but I had a feeling that something was awry at that moment, and just kind of tying into all this other sketchy behavior with him and Miss Turner. So Miss Turner has some choice words for George before she leaves.
You missed something in me. I was offering you a woman who would devote her life to your success, your health, and your happiness. Could Mrs. Russell say the same? I'd have loved you to the exclusion of everything else.
And you'll notice that he's thinking about what she said. You can see the wheels spinning a little bit, and he's taking in what she's saying. Because earlier, and I'll talk about that in a second, he had another little blow up with his wife about, her ambition, taking a front seat to all the issues that are going on with them, particularly his issue with the railroad and the accident, and will he be implicated in this? So, I think all of these things happening, kind of tying in with Miss Turner now saying what she said to him, I think it's just interesting because his reaction seems to be one who's drinking in what she's saying. So while we're on the Russells, let's talk a little bit about, in the very beginning of the episode, we see where George has a presentation at his office, and he's unveiling the demo of what the station is going to look like. He called it Union Central Station. And so before I was wondering if the station that they were referencing was Penn Station in New York. And when he said Union Central Station, now I'm starting to think it's Grand Central Terminal. That makes more sense. And it kind of looks like it in the rendering. I'm not sure. But, he shows what it would look like if there was electricity. Again, he's only using a battery. But Thomas Edison, who is referenced in this episode, has come to the point in his research where he's learned how to harness electricity. Now, electricity was always a thing, but nobody had been able to harness, and that's where Thomas Edison is coming in as per American history, because there are other people who will say that it was a black man, and there's more to the story. But I'm not here to get into that. I'm just talking about what we're seeing in this episode. So Larry, his son, takes this opportunity to tell him he wants to be an architect. We saw last week that he had met with the architect who built their house, and this is something he wants to do. His father shoots him down because his father believes that he should take over his business, that he already has a job, and he should stay focused. And, but Larry is his own man. And I think he got his father's attention when he told his father that, you're a great man. You've done amazing things. I'll never be able to duplicate that. Me being an architect will allow me the opportunity to make my own mark. And I think that George respects that. So he told him he'll think about it. And I have a feeling that he'll probably relent because unlike Bertha, I think he is more grounded, possibly a little more sympathetic to his children. I mean, he seems to be sympathetic towards Gladys, like as he keeps telling Bertha it's time for her to get out, stop treating her like a child. And his reaction when he was talking to his son gave me a sense that he heard him. It was the first time that he realized, how passionate Larry is about this and that maybe he should give it a second thought. So that was cool. We also see a scene in which George is having a conversation with his colleagues about the state of this investigation, because we saw there was an accident. He came to find out later that somebody had used some second-rate, inferior, or used axles. And then they went later, this person named Dixon they keep referring to, says that George told him to buy those used axles because they were cheaper. And so they present a letter where he's saying that that was signed by George, allegedly saying, these are things, those axles that you presented, you presented were too expensive, use the cheaper ones. And so now we're in this case where, did George really do this? Is this person Dixon trying to set him up? Was he trying to, embezzle funds? Because now there's some money missing as well. But we know that this is going to go further, and there will be a trial. There will be a hearing of some sort in which, if it is proven that George did, write that note or signed off on this, he could be brought up on charges for manslaughter. Bigger than jail time is just the loss of his empire and his fortune. So we see another clip in which Bertha and George are having a conversation about the status of his case.
Scandal, not when I'm so near. I'm taking a party to see Mr. Edison's lights, and I've set a date for Gladys's ball.
I'm glad to hear it.
But it won't happen if you're on trial. I'd have to cancel.
My dear, I don't make the rules. I will do everything within my power to defend myself. What more can I say?
But I've already settled a date with Mr. McAllister.
Well, God forbid I should be a disappointment for Mr. McAllister.
If you think this is funny...
I don't think it in the least funny that I'm facing the possibility of prison, and my wife is more concerned with the date of a ball.
So, last week, Bertha was very laser focused, on her placement and her ascend to the higher rungs of New York society. But she's being dismissive of what's going on in her husband's in their lives, but what her husband is dealing with, on the front lines. And, it's this whole case about will he be brought up on charges and what does that mean for the business? And for her, it's just about their image. She's now made a friend out of Ward McAllister. She's seeing her rise and she doesn't want anything to get in the way of that. And they have that conversation and, he is over it. He's like, you keep harping on the McAllisters and balls and dates and coming out and all this other stuff, all this pomp and circumstance. But hey, we have a serious issue here. Like I could go to jail. But we see this is going to continue to be a sore spot between them because Bertha is not going to stop her her ambition. She's not even going to pump the brakes really. She's just going to keep going full throttle. And at the same time, it does seem like she's being insensitive to what he's going through. And then just kind of on the tails of the fact that she fired Miss Turner and that Miss Turner did go to George's room and tell him that, I will be all those things for you. Like I will be focused on you and only, I would have been focused on you and only you. Can you say that about your wife? And like I said earlier, it did seem to give him pause and gave him something to think about. So Bertha, she's going to need to reel herself in because George is starting to look at her in a different light. There could be some infidelity on the horizon. Just saying. So Gladys, befriended Mrs. Astor's daughter. Carrie Astor is her name, I believe. And so now Carrie is trying to kind of pull her out of her confinement. And, because Carrie is an Astor, Bertha will acquiesce when it comes to recommendations or suggestions from her. So Gladys definitely aligned herself with the right person. And we see that Gladys is now going to have her debut. She's going to be introduced into society. Bertha has given the green light for them to go ahead and have a ball and bring her out. I believe this is entirely because of her relationship with Carrie and because Carrie pushed the issue and because now they are friends. She thinks this will bring, some approval and it will bring the approval of the Astors and of all the other highfalutin folks in New York City society. So again, this is not about Gladys. It's not about, her persistence to come out because she's been saying this since the beginning, since episode 1. And Bertha just kept pushing it off. And now because Carrie has weighed in, she's relenting. So again, and I know everybody here says that this is, typical of women in this time and, and give her a break. She's just being who she is. She is ambitious, but I'm not here for it. I mean, that is still your flesh and blood. That is your child. Like loving your kid is not, ambition should not remove you from, I don't want to say loving your kid because some people will say that is loving your kid because you want the best for them. But, there's just a coldness and a disconnect with her that we see where, even George, for all of his faults, when he was talking to Larry, he seemed to care how Larry felt. And Bertha has not indicated in not one episode yet that she gives a damn about Gladys's feelings. And that doesn't sit well with me. Although people will say it shouldn't matter, it just doesn't sit well with me. And it's part of the reason that my fondness of her has decreased week by week because I just don't like the way she treats her children, namely Gladys. Another small scene we saw was Oscar talking to his friend after he had his blow up with his mother. He tells his friend later that it's not a terrible thing that people will think that he was sleeping with Miss Turner because it can kind of solidify his reputation as a straight man, and that hopefully that will be will benefit him at some point in the future. And now he knows that Miss Turner has been set aside, so he has to kind of recalibrate a little bit, figure out what he's going to do, even though Miss Turner did give him some information about how to get in with Gladys so that he can pursue her and court her. But because, you know, it's never going to happen. We all know that. Bertha is not going to allow that, but Oscar, have at it, I guess. So let's talk about Marian. What did she do this episode? Okay, so she did go speak to Bertha about getting Miss Turner fired. She meets up with Mr. Raikes again because, you know, she's in love with Tom, allegedly. You know, she takes up Miss Chamberlain, her offer that they can meet at her house because Agnes is not here for it. And week by week, Agnes just shoots her down no matter how much she tries to talk up all his accomplishments and, you know, how great of a man he is. Agnes still thinks he's an adventurer and that he's using her, and she is not here for it. So they go and they meet at Miss Chamberlain's house. Miss Chamberlain, I'm really liking her. She gives them some sage advice, telling them, you know, make sure that what this is y'all are doing is really worth it, because getting kicked out of society does not feel good. And it may not seem like it now, but take it from me, because I know. And I said last week too, I like their relationship because I feel like Chamberlain gives her that kind of motherly, big sisterly advice that I think she would only take from her. So, you know, and Tom is putting it on heavy. He tells her he loves her. He tells her, you know, you don't have to listen to what your aunt is saying. We got to make our own way. We have to do it now. It seems a little rushed. You know, he's kissing her and all this other stuff. And again, like I said last week, I'm not sure where I stand on him. You know, he does seem to like her. And again, because like she said, I don't know what he would get out of her because she has no money, unless, like one of my subscribers said, you know, maybe she does have money or she has something else going on that nobody knows about, you know, because he was the person who was going through her father's financials, and he's the one who eventually told her that he had nothing. But maybe there is something to this, and maybe he knows about some money, property, or some assets that she has, and he's trying to, you know, get in on the front end so that when he can marry her and you know, there are some riches there that he can benefit from. I don't know. It's a theory, but could be true. Oh, so we also see at the end that Thomas Edison is having this event down on Park Row where he's going to be illuminating an entire building again because he has figured out how to harness electricity. And so it's this huge event. People are all coming out to see it. It gave me New Year's Eve. You know, you see all those people kind of, you know, crowded into an area and standing around and kind of looking at this building and just waiting. So Bertha decides to make an event out of it. He has 2 carriages and it's almost like a picnic. And so there's 8 seats in total, and it's her kids, Mr. McAllister, of course, the Fanes, and then there's 1 seat left. So when she had spoken to Marian earlier in the episode, she asked her if she had her permission to invite Mr. Raikes because she needed an 8th person and she wanted it to be a man. You know, Marian was disappointed that she wasn't able to attend because there wasn't enough room, but, you know, he did go. And it turns out that Aurora has a friend there. And so it looks like it's a setup. Like Aurora wanted her friend, her single friend, to meet up with Tom. The 2 of them were sitting in a carriage together and the friend is flirting with him. But then Aurora had a look on her face while they were talking that she felt uncomfortable with this. And I think there's so much more to this story, and I don't know what it is, but I mean, because it's like, why would she be uncomfortable if she kind of set it up? But I don't know. Maybe, you know, she's becoming friendly with Marian, so maybe her conscience is bothering her. Maybe she knows something we don't know. I don't know. But I think that was just a little hint of something that's to come. The building lights up. It's a beautiful thing. Peggy was there. She had went to meet with Mr. Fortune, who I believe is the owner of the Globe, New York Globe, the paper that she's writing for. They got a little something going on. There's a little something flirty going on between the 2 of them. I get the impression that they will eventually hook up in some way. I mean, a hookup is a really tacky word given this era, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think there's something there. There's some energy between the 2 of them. But anywho, he decides that he asked Peggy to come down with him because, you know, this is a big event, right? So, you know, the newspaper needs to cover it, and he wants Peggy to interview folks in the audience or interview folks who are down there while she's there. So that was really cool to see that Peggy was there. And like I said before, I love that Peggy has gotten, that she's, you know, being able to live in this world and just see, I mean, even though I know she comes from means, you know, don't get me wrong. I know she, her family has money, but because they are Black, there's a lot of doors that are closed to them. And this relationship with the Van Ryns and with Marian has allowed her to walk into some of these doors. You know, she was at the Red Cross meeting. She was able to go with them upstate to to Miss Barton's event. She's been able to, you know, rub elbows and meet with some people that she ordinarily may not have had access to, and it's only going to benefit her. In addition to her education and her smarts and her personal ambition, you know, and her pedigree, I think this is going to be really big for her. So it's really good to see that Peggy is, you know, she's kind of, you know, kind of like Mr. Raikes. She's around. She gets around. Next week we see that something is going to happen as far as her past and her history. You know, they're going to hint to that. And of course, we're going to see more about George and his trial or his hearing regarding the railroad crash. 2 episodes left. So I am unhappy about that, but I am happy that we've had 7 episodes to talk about, and we've had some really good dialogue, and people have provided some great information, some history, and some recommending videos and books and all types of good stuff like that for folks like us who are into history. And yeah, so let me know what you thought about this episode. Tell me what you think about Mr. Raikes. Do we still not trust him or not? We think that Bannister is going to do, because now he knows who wrote the note. What's his revenge going to look like? What is Miss Turner's revenge going to look like? How funny is it that Agnes is still not talking to Bannister? That's hilarious.
Ask him when it was delivered.
When was it delivered, Bannister?
Just now, Mom.
Just now.
Before he goes, tell him to ask John for some tips on serving luncheon. Everything went so smoothly when John was at the helm.
She's gonna make him pay in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, so it was a lot of good stuff. And let me know what you thought, and we'll talk about it and all that good stuff in the comments. And then I will see you guys next week to review episode 8. Oh, don't forget, please like, share, and subscribe. If you subscribe, you can hit the notification bell, and when my videos go live, usually I post them on Tuesdays, you can get the notification and you'll know that the video is up, and you can go hop right on and watch it and comment, and we can have a good conversation. Have a good week.